Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Mr. David Rosmarin. Actually, that's Dr. David Rosmarin. So, before we get started, we want to thank one of our amazing sponsors and partners. We want to thank CRM Done Better, and they are the trusted CRM partner for Ogden Ventures LLC and the Get Authentic with Marques Ogden show. We are so grateful to have such an awesome CRM platform help us keep our business organized, building systems, and moving forward with some great speed and with great organization as well. We thank CRM Done Better for sponsoring this episode. Now, here he is. Dave, how you doing today, David?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. First question, David. What does the word authentic/authenticity mean to you?
That's a great question. Can you own stuff that you don't want to own and share it with other people? Be real about it. That's, as a psychologist, like this is what I do every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you be real? Can you own your stuff? Can you say, this is who I am? This is the real me. I've made mistakes. I've done things incorrectly. I need to do better in my life. And if you can own these things, then life will get a lot better for you. And you
Sure.
know what, David? For me, as an individual that went through a divorce, lots of hardships, mental
Wow.
health struggles, I'm a guy that if somebody that I'm talking to or looking to potentially do business with, if they can't own their stuff, then I don't want to work with them. For example, one of our partners made something clear to me that I wasn't doing something really well. I was not fulfilling what I should have been doing. And I'm letting them know, you know what, you are 100% right. I'm going to make this right. I'm going to own this. I don't mind taking care of what I need to take care of. And
Love it.
let's move forward. And let's try to build on something going to the next level. So, David, love that. So, please tell us a little more about yourself, where you're from, your backstory, and then your work as a psychiatrist.
You got it. So from Toronto, Canada, and came to Harvard Medical School about 15 years ago on fellowship, and I haven't left. But I did venture beyond the med school. I started a clinic called Center for Anxiety, which has offices in New York and also here in Boston, and serviced over 10,000 patients through that clinic, which is pretty cool. And over the last couple of years, though, I've realized that all the clinical work in the world isn't going to help people to be authentic. Really, you need to have content. You need to be out there. And I've been working on ways to reach larger groups of people. On issues of mental health, specifically in the area of anxiety, which, let's face it, everyone's got, and not a lot of people really understand and know how to deal with, and to own, and to be authentic with. So that is my story in a nutshell.
You know, it's very interesting, David. You talk about, your work in the mental health space and people who need to own their stuff, right? I was
Definitely.
having a conversation with somebody about this past weekend, and I was telling that individual that I have some mental health struggles around attachment, around people being there for me because of my upbringing. I've worked through that
Good.
constantly throughout my entire life, always in therapy, out of therapy. Very grateful. I'm going to be authentic. The NFL does an amazing job giving resources to players and former players that have the struggles and
Okay.
need help to get over hardships. So I cannot thank the NFL enough for all they've done for me in the last, I don't know, almost over 15 years to help me in this area. But this individual told me that they don't have any mental health issues. And I'm like,
Uh,
wow, really? You have no mental health issues? Nothing? And so I said to myself, that's an individual that unfortunately I will not be able to connect with and or vibe with, because if you're going to tell me there's nothing wrong with you in that degree, I'm going to be like, that's a red flag. That's
I
just who
say it
I
all
am
the
as a
time. Marcus, I
as a
say
big.
this all the time. People say to me, like,
Tell
looking
me.
for somebody to marry, what's the biggest red flag? I said, if there's no red flag, that's your biggest red flag. If you know what the issues are that you're getting into, then fine. Then you can deal with it and then you have a plan. But if you don't know what it is and you think everything's hunky dory, I promise you it's not. And it happens the same with business partners, the same with family members, same with people in your community. The perfect people are the most dysfunctional almost always, and in part I would say it's because they're not being authentic. You can't be. If you're trying to come off as perfect, there's no such thing as authenticity, and that's just the Achilles heel of humans.
Dave, I want to get a little bit selfish for a minute. Okay, that's one of my issues. I'm very rare in that regard, but this is something very, very important to me. So
Yeah.
I love this dialogue, right? So this individual, right, that said there's nothing wrong with them, and then I end up, saying, you know what, I'm going to part ways. We're not gonna try to make this work. I just can't vibe with you. Then after that, this individual basically called me childish, immature, said that I don't know how to work through conflict, all this stuff. Well, no, I don't mind working through conflict. But what I do mind is working through the same conflict over and over and over again, that you obviously aren't hearing me and you're not helping me to see that you understand where I'm coming from. So when I said I'm done and I'm out, they started saying how childish I was. They couldn't believe that we're not talking anymore because of this, because of that. And I'm like, well, and again, you don't have any mental health issues. So now you're seeing the whole facet. So but let's get your perspective, David, on someone who, when they feel that they're Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, and then when you call them out on it, then they resort to like these type of outlashes. What does that really mean? Because I think a lot of people that are listening, right, David, deal with that unfortunately too much, and it ends up causing problems if you don't address it or if you continue to tolerate it around the clock.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it sounds like your strategy in this situation is to distance from that person. And in certain cases, that could be what you need to do. But often, if you want to help them out and you want to make something of the relationship, drawing them closer is much more important than pushing them away. The reality is, not everybody can be authentic at all points in time. I've certainly had points in my career where I couldn't be fully authentic. When I started out at the med school, there's no way that I could admit my struggles, my own struggles with anxiety or other issues to my colleagues. They wouldn't
Mm.
have accepted me into their ranks. It wouldn't have worked as an instructor or an assistant professor. Now that I'm further along in my career, I can own it and I can even own it publicly, and that's okay. But that doesn't necessarily have, work at all points along the developmental line. And I think there should be some compassion for that. Now, of course, if a person literally can't and they really should, and there's a line, but where do we draw that line? When do we draw that line? I'd like to avoid doing so. And the closer you can draw someone, also, when you have a close relationship with someone, they're more likely to be authentic with you. Because when you know that somebody loves you and someone's there for you and they care about you and they're in it with you, then you can own your stuff. It really, a lack of authenticity often comes from insecure attachment, as to use your word. So it also shows your strength. You came around from whatever the demons that you grew up with, and here you are being authentic. That's incredible. So that's a unique journey, and I want to give you that credit. Not everybody can make that journey, so sort of just recognize that as well. Some people need a little more handholding along the way.
You know what, David? I really appreciate that perspective because, and you said it best. You can try to draw someone closer, and again, I fully support people that do that. And then sometimes you draw a line in the sand, and I fully support people that do that as well. Again, it's all about your threshold for wanting to tolerate and or deal with something, and there is no right or wrong way to approach situations like this. But I think the most important facet is just understanding that you are going to have to set the tone what you will and or will not deal with. And you're going to have to make that decision and going to
Right.
have to stand by it in that regard as well. So I really, really like what you're doing and saying, right, David? So let's talk now about your work around anxiety.
Sure.
Can you please, David, give our audience from your perspective, what is anxiety?
Great. There's really two types of anxiety. There's clinical anxiety, which interferes with your life. We call those anxiety disorders. And I would say probably between 5 and 8% of the population has an anxiety disorder. We diagnose not only a clinical anxiety, though, we diagnose even normal anxiety, which is the other type of anxiety that every single human being has at some point along the way. It's not pleasant. We have the heart palpitations and the shortness of breath and the stomach upset and the muscle tension and the worries and all the standard symptoms that go along with it. And that's normal. That's a struggle. I promise you, you've been in the NFL. You know what it's like to line up and to like be there. And are you not feeling some of those symptoms before a game, before something when things are on the line? Don't tell me, right? Am I wrong? Like, are those feelings
Oh, you're
on?
100% right. No, no, no. Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course
I
they.
mean, every game I played in, I was always anxious beforehand. Every single one, because I always had emotion running high throughout my body. So I was
Right,
always anxious. Like, is this gonna go well? And I tried to not worry to the point where I was just like constantly drawing myself or driving myself crazy. But
right.
oh
That's
yeah,
clinical
anxious,
anxiety.
wanting to do well. Yes, absolutely. I was always anxious, wanting to do well.
That's normal. And we've come to a place in our society where we pathologize. We think that it's a problem to have not only clinical anxiety, but also normal run of the mill. And I would even say high functioning anxiety. I was on the phone today with an individual. I do concierge mental health. So I work with a lot of people in the billionaire bracket. And speaking to somebody who's having anxiety, and it's a normal process that every person at every echelon in the economic spectrum, whether they're functioning well, they're not functioning well, across the entire developmental, trajectory of life, from baby literally to being an older adult. Anxiety is part of the constellation of being human, almost, and especially I would say for high functioning people. That doesn't mean you're broken, and that's really the message that I could never get across in the clinic, and something that I'm really focusing a lot on today. So most of my work today is about writing, speaking for corporations, for other things, about how anxiety is often very normal and can even be positive when you have the right skill set and the right approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, I love this because now I'm going to get into the question of where does anxiety come from. So we talked about what it is from a holistic and from a clinical perspective. Now, where does it come from? Because this is a huge, huge thing going forward, right? Because I think if people understand, right, David, where it comes from, they could be much more aware of what triggers them or what makes them feel a certain way. So where do you feel, from your expert opinion, my friend, anxiety stems and or comes from?
Really, from not being authentic. And I'm not just saying that because of the title of the podcast. When people can't own their anxiety, when they try to get rid of it, when they try to pretend it's not there, when they try to work around it as opposed to with it or through it, it gets worse every single time. If you don't own your anxiety, it's going to get worse. And when I see clinical anxiety disorders where it's really interfering with someone, almost always, almost every single time, it's because they're not really owning it and really dealing with it. They're trying to get rid of it and get it out of their life.
Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to get yourself to a state of healthiness, you have to be authentic. And it's interesting, right? That's something that I can say really holds true because when people around me, if I feel I'm not being myself, or if I feel I'm trying to do something for somebody and they don't appreciate it, and I start to feel I lose myself, what happens is I get more and more stressed out. I get
Yes.
more and more anxious. I get more and more questioning myself. So the individual that I no longer connect and vibe with, when I remove that person from my life, I felt an immediate weight lift off of me because I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much me trying to do what that person wanted me to do all the time, it became a chore. It wasn't something that I was like enjoying doing. I felt like I was chored or tasked or made to do so. And once I was able to remove that out of my life got so much better and it got a lot more fulfilling. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is outstanding because it really starts to help you see that the key to having a life that you want is about your ability to really connect with people by being yourself. And if you're not being authentic, or if you're being unauthentic, stress and anxiety will catch up with you. David, what are your thoughts?
Sure, they even become worse. Part of relationships is that they're gonna be challenging. The best relationships, the closest connections that you have are gonna be with imperfect people because everybody's imperfect, and that's what being authentic means. And like you said before, like at a certain point, you gotta, maybe draw a line or wonder what the story is. But our connections with others means allowing them to be authentic, being authentic with ourselves, and owning it. Anxiety materializes so often in our connection with other human beings because love matters. Connection really matters to us. And when we feel that people can't be there with us, they are not available to us, they're not respectful of our time, they're not available to us emotionally, they don't really understand us, it actually can create even physical concerns, let alone a mental. So, these are really critically important pieces. And having close relationships means being able to express these emotions in some healthy way, which unfortunately is not always the case these days.
You know what, Dave? This is just so riveting and insightful because it's helping me to understand what I'm looking for as I go forward into my next relationship and how I need to be very much cognizant of these things going forward. So this is great because, again, anxiety and stress can cause negativity, can cause negative energy. It can really throw you off balance and it can make it really hard for relationships to blossom into anything that you really want to have, like you said, to develop that close, very tight knit relationship with somebody that you're trying to either be with, date, or eventually maybe marry, things in that regard. So this
That's
is
true.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's
So Dave,
true. And sometimes using that anxiety, I have a module in this new masterclass that I'm offering on my website. And in it, there's a section about turning anxiety into love, my friend. Turning anxiety into love and greater connection with others. Because if you open up to somebody who you can trust, not someone who you can't, but somebody who you can trust with your anxiety, you will increase the closeness that you have with that person. You said it before, you can't really be close to somebody who has no mental health problems, who has no issues whatsoever. We need to be authentic. And by doing so, we actually draw people close because they are with us while we are struggling. That there's no greater way to prove, if you will, that someone will be there for you than having a stressful experience in front of them and having them be there with you. So we've all had that. I just want to make it clear.
no, that's fantastic. And you know what, Dave? When I asked the individual about some of their mental health challenges and they told me they had none,
Uh-huh.
that at that moment, I knew it was going to be that relationship, that interaction was going to be over. I mean, I just knew
Limited,
it
very
because,
limited. Yeah.
oh, yeah, I knew that because I wasn't with that person or talking to them long enough to like, oh, wow, really like dig in, get my heels dug in. And like, again, ladies and gentlemen, this comes back to what you can tolerate. I can tolerate people telling me I've made mistakes. I've done this wrong. I've done that wrong. I own this. I'm this way. Totally get it. And I can jive with you at any level. But when you tell me that there's something wrong with you, or you're this perfect, or you don't have issues, that I cannot jive with because that means that what I'm going through, you really can't relate to it, or
Right.
worse yet, you're not going to be empathetic towards it. And that's when I say, I got to go. Because now, David, I want to get into your master classes, your speaking,
Sure.
your work. Tell our global audience more about that, what you're doing with keynote speaking for corporations, your masterclass. Please talk more about all of your assets.
Sure. So as an academic, for many years, I stood behind the lectern and my slides and the death by PowerPoint, and it was really a way of dealing with my own anxiety, to be perfectly honest. Last year, I stepped on the TEDx stage twice. It was terrifying. There was no confidence monitors, there was no teleprompters, there were no slides. There was just me standing on the stage. I felt like I was naked. It was terrifying. And it was one of the most liberating, awesome experiences, and I can't get enough of it. So these days, I'm next month, I'm going to Dubai. The following month, I'm heading over to Brazil. So I've got a whole bunch of, actually at this point, international talks, which is kind of crazy and fun also. And speaking about anxiety and how normal it is and how you can actually use it in a positive way in your life. The master class takes people through it very methodically. I have a 4-step process. I've used it with over 10,000 patients. I'm confident in it, getting really good feedback on it too. So that's a little more tactical for people looking for more of a solution for themselves. Yeah, this is really the work that I feel like I was built to do. And just, helping people to be more authentic and to own their anxiety and to integrate it into their life so they can thrive with it as opposed to trying to get rid of it, which is just doesn't work.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the entire precipice, the entire crux of our show. It's
Wow.
you cannot live the life you want to live if you're not authentic,
True.
if you're not real, if you're not genuine. You just can't do it. So I'm going to challenge everybody that's listening. As David said, start to be your authentic self and understand that is your superpower, like vulnerability is, and learn to live in who you are. And that's what's going to allow you to be less anxious, less stressed. Does it mean you're going to never be anxious, never be stressed? Absolutely
Definitely
not.
not.
We're not saying that. We're saying it'll help you become less stressed, less anxious if you can start to move in patterns like that. So awesome. Dave, fantastic interview.
Oh,
How
thanks.
can people support you? Like, where can they go for like information or your master class if they want to book you for a speaking event? Where can our global audience get in touch with you?
Yeah, check out my website, Rosmarin, DHROSMARIN.com. I don't know if you'll put it in the show notes. Happy to send you a link. And yeah, I love when people reach out to me. So contact me through my website. I have a weekly email list. People can definitely sign up for that as well. A bunch of free resources on my website. People who want to learn about how to use their anxiety in a constructive way. So I just really appreciate that opportunity. Yeah, people can reach out to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please reach out to him. He's a very well informed, very, very highly sophisticated individual in this space. He's speaking around the globe on this topic. It's a topic everybody, if you are authentic, everybody will be honest with themselves, totally honest that anxiety and stress is something that you deal with on a daily basis. But like David said, it doesn't mean you cannot have what you want in life, but you have to be authentic. You have to own it. You have to say, okay, now here's how I'm going to move forward. So again, we want to thank our awesome sponsor and partner, CRM Done Better. Rebecca Callis and her team are phenomenal, and they are the trusted partner of Ogden Ventures LLC and Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. And the authentic tip of this great interview, in order to get yourself in a less stressed, less anxiety state of mind, you have to be authentic and you have to own your stuff. If you own your stuff, everything else will start to work out in that regard. But again, it's all about owning your stuff to move yourself forward to get the life that you want for yourself. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.